broadcast show brought to you by Magnicraft Consulting Team, anchored by Niyi Dunmade, a certified church consultant with the Society for Church Consulting in the U.S. Here, each Monday of every week, we address important, relevant, and actionable topics of interest that will help you and your church grow healthier. And now, meet your host, Niyi Dunmade. Are you aware that 70% of pastors constantly fight depression and burnout for the frustration experienced as a result of ministry workload, discouragement, and pressure? We help leaders grow healthy churches. We are excellent at what we do, and we are fast becoming the best of the very best. Magnicraft Consulting is set up to help both small and large-sized churches become healthier by using proven diagnostics tools, effective retention strategies. We give the right and appropriate and professional advice. We are the certified church consultants with the Society of Church Consulting in the United States of America. Trust us to help you grow. Don't wait till it's too late. You will be glad you did. Call us now on 0802-324-2258. Email contact@magnicraftconsulting.com or magnicraftconsulting@gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram @Magnicraft Limited. Magnicraft Consulting, doing church God's way. Are you aware that
Welcome to this Monday Morning Matters. My name is Niyi Dunmade. I'm the founder and CEO of Magnicraft Consulting. Welcome to this Monday Morning Matters of June. This is second Monday, and we're going to continue with what we started last week, Monday, on emergency preparedness checklist for churches. You can learn that for personal things, for ministry, for non-profit organizations. Some of these things are applicable, and so we want you to get that straight up, that we are trying to help everyone as much as possible. Okay, as much as possible. So we're going to look at church emergency preparedness checklist. Church emergency preparedness checklist, and this is Monday Morning Matters. It's been on for almost 5 years. Please go on the Facebook page, go on our YouTube channel. You will going to get some good videos there, unedited, raw, and rich as it is. And so once again, I want to welcome you to this Facebook Live broadcast show and on YouTube channel as well. This month is going to be real because we have to deal with issues that are confronted with our churches so that our churches can be well equipped to deal with some of these things. So thank you for hooking up with us. Thank you for being on air with us. We are so glad they are part of this live broadcast show. And as I said earlier, my name is Niyi Dunmade. I'm the lead consultant, founder and CEO of Magnicraft Consulting. We're going to do a little bit of promo. But before we do a little bit of promo, I also want to tell you what Magnicraft Consulting is about. Magnicraft Consulting is a church consulting firm that helps local churches to grow healthier through empirical assessment, revitalization, trainings, and strategic blueprint. Our vision is to be the leading church health consultancy that helps to create actionable, sustainable, and adaptable solution. I'm also a certified church consultant with the Society for Church Consulting in the US. I'm also a certified church consultant with Church Answers, and so I'm your weekly host to the weekly Facebook Live broadcast show. Every Monday, 7 a.m. Nigerian time, is been coming your way from myself, who is a church health guide of the 21st century. A big thank you to everyone who has been commenting, who has been sharing our content. Reach out to us to tell us how they are blessed with some of the broadcasts. We thank you so much for the time, the data, and the attention you are giving to us. And so I'm going to go straight to the juice so that we can have something today. Today is part 2 of 4 of church emergency preparedness checklist. What are the checklists? What are the procedures? What should you put in place to prepare for the disruptions that will surely come? Earthquakes will come, tornadoes will come, weather disasters are all kinds, I mean, even up to rain. I can remember just yesterday, rain fell and that affected attendance. We need to find out what are we going to do to those who don't want to venture into the rain to come to church. We need to do something about the disruptions that happens to church, or else we're going to accept the status quo that is just the normal thing for disruptions to happen to church and nothing happens as a result of that event that is disruptive to the church. So what I said is to understand the type of emergency. Okay, the type of emergency, and be prepared for it. The way you prepare for a fire disaster is different from a woman under labor in your church, or is different from when there is thunder lightnings. Okay, those emergencies have their different types, and so the way to prepare for them are unique. They are peculiar. They are not universal. Okay, and your church also is also unique. Okay, how is your church going to mitigate the risk of flooding is different from another church, because we are all different in different localities and different ecological factors. So we need to know and understand the type of emergencies that you are prone to, okay, and you are not prone to. You have those emergencies written down and be prepared for those emergencies. It's likely that those emergencies may never come, but it's good for you to be prepared, because you don't know the future, you don't know tomorrow, and so you need to be prepared for all kinds of emergencies. You see, one of the things I would say quickly is that churches who are ready for all emergencies are very healthy. They grow. They are prepared. If you are prepared for X emergency, it shows that you are prepared for Y that God wants to do in your church. Secondly is be very observant. Be very observant to clues and symptoms and details that is going on in your church. You see, things doesn't go bad without clues, symptoms, and indicators. So, I mean, what are the indicators of some of these things? You need to know what are the fire will not just engulf your church. There are indicators. How do you mitigate those risks? So be very observant for clues, for symptoms, and for indicators. There are things that will tell you that something is going to happen next. Something is going to happen the following next. And that's how it is. Because some of these emergencies is a process of events that gets worse and worse in disruption. So be very observant. Be very observant to clues, so symptoms and indicators. Okay, be very, very observant, and also be organized. Be organized to be able to detect these clues, these symptoms and indicators on time. You see, one thing about emergency is time. You see, the longer you get to know the emergency, then you have allowed and created time for the emergency to do the disaster in your church. So the earlier you notice those clues, symptoms, and indicators, the better you are well positioned to address the emergency at hand. So, very, very important, you should have people everywhere who are very observant. They are able, because when the police comes and they want a written report, how observant to the details, to the clues, to the symptoms, to the indicators, that's what will be used to help the police, the law enforcement agency, to be able to crack down or to work on your case. So be very observant. You should not be saying about when you are dealing with lies, or approximately. You should be able to say at so a specific time, this happened, this at so specific time, this happened next, this happened next. And so from there, you can be able to know some causes. You see, you might have that disaster have a toll on you now, but when next that disaster happens, it should not have a toll on you. You should be well prepared for the next one, because the thing is, some of these disasters have a way of repeating themselves, like earthquakes, like tornadoes, like hurricanes, all kinds of rains will always fall during rainy season. There will always be harsh weather. There will always be all kinds of disease outbreaks like the one we had in 2029 and 2020 that's COVID-19. So be very, very observant. Be well organized and positioned. I mean, there's nothing there's nothing wrong with you as a pastor, as a leader of the church, to subscribe to weather forecasts and disseminate to your members so that they are well prepared ahead of time. You see, one of the things is, if someone is aware that rain is going to fall the following day by the morning of the previous day, it is going to be well prepared than sleeping and waking up in the morning to meet the rain. And so that you leverage on technology, you leverage on tools, on machine learning, on algorithm learning to be able to foster your church together as a whole. So assign roles to specific emergency types. Assign roles for specific emergency types to professional bodies, to competent bodies. Okay, for example, people who are fire related should be able to have a fire service agency that is so close to your church, and it is far from your church. There's nothing wrong with your church having fire extinguishers at critical positions in your church. I can remember when I was church administrator, I stood strong to make sure that there were fire extinguishers everywhere, and there was periodic checks that those fire extinguishers are working, and they are up at their peak and ready to go in case there was any emergency. Because fire might not give you might not notice when there's fire, because it happened when I was church administrator. There was a fire from one of the electricity switch, and thank God, by the side of that electricity switch there was a fire extinguisher, and somebody, I don't know whether he knows how to use it, but that was just one decision to just pick up the fire extinguisher and then and then try to blow up the fire away from escalating. Because the thing is, if you do not do something timely, it will take over the roof, it will take over the building, and then there will be a massive loss to the church. But that's one, I mean, you can imagine, we spent some money to put some of those fire extinguishers, but the thing has been able to save the church losing properties, lives and properties, to fire outbreak in the church. I'm going to just mention some of the emergency cases. You just pen them down, create an emergency team. I mean, people who are very good and vast in preparing you for emergencies. Okay, because human beings are not just spiritual beings. Human beings are spirit, soul, and body. And as a church, you need to be thinking in those three dimensions, that when you are leading your church, making sure that their spiritual being is well, and then their soul being is well, and their body also being is well. In those three dimensions, okay? Because sometimes we always want to concentrate on the spiritual side by putting in faith, but you see, you also be very therapeutic, be very hopeful, and be very inspiring and motivating when it comes to the soul. And so also be concerned about the physical being, because the entire being of the man is very, very important. So what are the some emergencies we can have in our church? You see, before I start mentioning some of these emergencies, I also want to say that I know some churches will say, no, this can't happen in my church, that can't happen in my church. See, we are not praying for emergencies to happen in your church. We are just saying that be prepared, so that in case it comes, you have something to dust off and address that emergency. Some of these emergencies has happened in some churches, but there's no preparedness, and then you are now thinking of what to do to address that emergency. It doesn't show that you have your thinking caps on and you are actually proactive as a leader. So one of the things is, what is the church going to do when a child is missing? Okay, I mean, as I'm a father of three. If I go to a church and my child is missing, of course I'm going to go haywire. I'm going to go really, really mad. Okay, because I will not be part of a church that is not concerned with the security of children. So there must be proper check-in and proper checking out in your child. But see, no matter the systems, the automation, the security checks that we have in our church, things can go wrong. And so when things go wrong in terms of missing children, what are you going to do? What are you going to do if the children are exposed to sexual disoriented human beings, okay, endangered persons, emotionally disturbed persons? Because the thing is, the mental health that we have today is going to get worse, and there's a likelihood that 25% of your congregation are going to be endangered. They're going to be emotionally disturbed. And so what happens when some, and I can say it quickly, people who are manifesting the spirit in quotes are not just necessarily manifesting the spirit. Some of them are just emotionally disturbed. They have, I can say this quickly. Somebody had a high fever and they said talking all kinds of things as if the person was drunk. Now, if I was not matured, I would have said, okay, the person is tipsy. But you see, things, emotionally disturbed persons can be disruptive to a service and to the operations of the church. So be very careful with how you handle endangered persons and then emotionally disturbed persons in your church. Then the second one has to do with active shooter. Okay, you have a terrorist threat. What are you going to do? Somebody just walks in your church. You see, one of the things I'll say quickly is that set up systems to be able to detect and to prevent. But you see, no matter how you set up systems are not 100% proof. There will always be some loopholes which you should always fine-tune. But set up a system to always prevent, but when it happens, set up a system to mitigate and to address those emergency cases. So when you have an active shooter, what are you going to do? We have a terrorist threat to your church, a bomb threat. I know some churches who have armor tanks in their frontage. They have some good security screens, because the thing is, I can tell you from fact, in Nigeria, there are a lot of churches who have been attacked by bomb threats, by burning down their churches. Our terrorism attacks is on a very high, especially in the northern region. And I can say quickly, those who are in the southern regions, to see how they can reach out to those ones in the north, because the body of Christ is one, and we need to make sure that all of us are. So what are you going to do if there's a bomb threat, a terrorism? Sit down and ask yourself, because how a small sized church will react to a bomb threat is different from how a mid-sized church or a large-sized church is going to react to terrorism attack in a church. What happens if there's a suspicious item or a package somewhere in a church and you don't know the content? What are you going to do? You see, you don't just allow all the crowd to run towards the item. You first of all make sure that everyone is in a safe point. And I mentioned about the muster point. You should have a muster point in your church where people can go to safety, and that muster point to be able to take the accommodation or the number of your auditorium. Okay, there's no point you having a muster point for 20 when your church is accommodating 2,000. It doesn't just make sense. Okay, so what are you going to do when you have a suspicious item or a package? What are you going to do as a church if there is a weather outbreak, a kind of weather disaster? Okay, a weather disaster. What are you going to do? I mean, there are going to be rains, there are going to be harsh weather, there are going to be disruptive weather. What are you going to do in different cases? I know some churches abroad that don't have services because everywhere is cold, it's dangerous for you to go out. What are you going to do when those things come your way? Disruptive weathers can be very, very dangerous to human beings. And so we need to be able to tell ourselves crystal clear what we are going to do to be able to address those kind of disruptive weathers. Then we also have, of course, when you talk about weather, there are all kinds of severe and disruptive weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes. There are quite a lot of them. And so we need to be prepared for those kind of emergencies. I mean, your church needs to have emergency funds to be able to power whatever emergencies that you have. I know some churches in abroad that people will not be part of your church until they're able to know the emergency muscles that you have in case there is hurricane, there's tornado, there's severe weather conditions in our vicinity, because they know that where they are, their Jerusalem is prone to these kinds of severe weather conditions. So environmental disasters, what are you going to do? Fire outbreaks. There's a fire outbreak in a close by building and it's spreading fast, or there's a fire outbreak in the wood, because in my country during the Hamatans the forest is always dry, and there's always that kind of there's a high propensity for the dry leaves to just to catch fire, and that's how it's going to spread abroad. So what are you going to do? One of the things I've said quickly is make sure that there's enough fire extinguishers around your building, around the generators, around where the cars are parked, because a car can just take some flames and then but if you have enough for the number of cars in your car park, that will help you to be able to take care of fire outbreaks in your church. There's also power failure. I remember when I was church administrator of my church, we were having a service and there was a power failure. It can happen. Okay, electronics, generators, they always have a way of failing at some point. So what are you going to do during the middle of praise and worship and the gen goes off? You see, one of the things I also learned is have a plan B. Have a team on ground, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers on ground, so that we're able to address the issue on time. What are you going to do to make when there's a power failure in your church? You see, if you don't know what to do, what happens is that you are creating more panics, more confusion, and people will want to question your leadership, because the real nature of your leadership is tested. The real character of your leadership, the real features of your leadership is tested when there is pressure and emergencies has a way of putting pressure on your leadership. Okay, there's elevator entrapment, or there's a building collapse. Okay, there's also medical issue. I've had, I mean, when I was struggling, I had a lot of medical issues. I had to tell the doctors in my church, I said, sorry, I need to give you a specific seat. You see, when somebody is in labor, somebody is convulsing, is vomiting, there is a seizure, there is all kinds of things, because people don't mind coming to church sick. Okay, I don't have people just I mean, you know that you are at the verge of giving birth, but you won't always want to come to church, which is good. But see, you have to make sure that you are ready for medical emergencies. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from knowing the number of pregnant women in your church per time, the number of people who have how will I put it, sicknesses or indicator, maybe it's asthma, so that you know how to manage them. You put them, people who are also having issues with high sound, you don't put them close to the speakers. Know your people in terms of their health status. Everyone is not just healthy like that. So let's understand the medical conditions. Start from your leaders, start from your workers, start from people who are willing to open up, and then that's how you are able to address any medical condition that comes as a disruption to your church. Get a medical team in a place and equip them with a sick bay to be able to take first aid activities. Okay, somebody cut the hand, somebody has an injury from just walking in the church. You should have a first aid box. You should have some good medical tools to be able to give some first aid treatment, and then you have an ambulance or a vehicle that can take someone swiftly. So as a church, what are the close by hospitals in your church that you can take people to? Okay, if the maximum a hospital can take is, let's say, 40, and you have an emergency in your church that is 120, you need to be able to increase your capacity. You see, that's one of the reasons why some churches will not grow, because your capacity cannot measure up what you are designed for. So you enlarge your capacity to make sure that you are measuring up to what your church is demanding from you. Then what is your evacuation plan? Your crowd controlling plan. Okay, people are after a service, people are exiting the church and there's a stampede. People can faint, people can injure themselves. You should, I know some churches who have some kind of crowd control unit so that people go out in clusters. Everyone cannot go out at the same time. People have to be patient. I can remember in a flight, we have almost 150 people on board, and then you could see that they allowed some people go out first, and they went out, and that was very, very orderly. People could not just there was no stampede, there was no injury to anyone. So what do you do when you want to evacuate people? I mean, when people want to leave your service in between first or second service of the multiple service you are running? What's your evacuation plan when there is an emergency to get people out to the muster point or out of the building? Okay, what's your evacuation plan? Because the way a small size church is going to evacuate people is different from a 5,000 size church. So I mean, if your church is 1,000, there's a number of exit doors you should be able to operate. If your church is 10,000, there is a number of exit doors that you should be able to operate. You can't have 10,000 people in a building and then you just operate only 2 doors. It doesn't make sense. What if there's an emergency? There's going to be a big problem in your church. So what's your evacuation plan, your internal evacuation plan, and then your lockdown procedures? How are you going to shut down in the case of maybe like COVID-19, okay, a kind of medical pandemic? Okay, how are you going to lock down? Okay, COVID-19 taught us that some lockdowns can be detriment to your reopening, because there's a way you lock down a church so that people are fully aware, people are fully carried on. So what are your lockdown procedures when there is pandemics, there are all kinds of diseases, outbreaks, and what is your church going to do? Okay, I know some churches who were able to still stand their ground to say, no matter the disaster, we're going to meet. And I can tell you that some of those churches, their faith fought for them, and they had a low down COVID-19 in their cases. So what is your church lockdown procedures, your recovery, your follow-up procedure, your medical and communications plan in case of this disruptive incident? I've taken quite a lot. From next Monday, we're going to look at some of these things. I didn't know that time has gone to almost 30 minutes. But you see, there are quite a lot. This list is not exhaustive. You can have all kinds. I don't know your peculiarity of your church. You can have much more disaster on the list than the ones I have mentioned. If you missed any of them, you can just get back to watch them again and see how you can get those list on the ground. Okay, I want to just wrap it up here, and then next Monday we're going to go. Today is a public holiday in Nigeria. Don't mind me. That's why I extended the program to this. So if you have any church related questions for me, please inquiries for me. Let us have them in any of the social media scrolling on the screen. Ask me a question, I tell you, you're going to get more than an answer from me, and I'm going to help one another to make sure that your church is becoming better and better and better. Please, this video has been helpful to you. Give us a like. Do share us to your community. Drop us a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Also, as you have learned from me, drop a comment in the comment section what you feel about the content we have shared. And of course, you're going to get a response from me in no time. Is that okay? We also do consultations. We also do do trainings. We also do strategic. Please feel free to reach out to us, and so we can see how we can help your church become better. Our numbers are on the screen. Please give us a call, and let's see how we can make your church better and better. Any question, please, let's have them. That will be glad for me to engage your questions or whatever clarifications you have for me. All right. Till I come next week Monday with a part 3 or 4 for this season hot topic, church emergency preparedness checklist. I say bye-bye. I love you, and God bless you.